back once again to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones. And in this one, let's go ahead and add one more figure to my McFarlane DC Multiverse collection. Now today we will take a look at the first figure from the Dark Knight Trilogy wave. Now I did pick up the whole wave from the McFarlane toy store. Pretty cool deal. Now I have been sitting on this since Monday, but I don't know, the Iron Goddess kind of got a hold of me, so I kind of been spending my time concentrating on that. But I do want to get into this wave. I am really anticipating taking a look at all of these figures. Now I have watched some reviews, and honestly I don't know I don't know what they're smoking, or if they're just, that dumb. But I did hear a lot of like negativity and stuff like that. So me, I personally like to actually get the figure in hand and take a look at it for myself and see the fun factor, the articulation, the different cool details. So I'm really interested to go ahead and start off this way. We will be taking a look at the Scarecrow. This version of the character is pretty much, I'm sure, from Batman Begins. Now actually the figure does take from two different scenes in the movie, but we all know that it doesn't really matter. This is just a cool figure for you to play around with, do figure photography, pose on your shelf. And some people even buy them and just give them to their kids and let them destroy them. So I mean, all in all, we're all having a lot of fun with these. But I am really looking forward to taking a look at Dr. Crane. Now he does look pretty sick and twisted in the packaging, but let's go ahead and take a closer look at him. But first, he does come with your standard black DC Multiverse stand. Now these are not really needed, but sometimes they do come in useful. He also comes with his data file card. On the front you do have some figure photography. I'm not sure if it's rendered, but it does look like the actual figure. And on the back you do have some information. Now of course the character of the Scarecrow has a long history in the DC Comics. He is one of the main Batman rogues. Now it's pretty rare to see him in live action. I actually think this was the first time that we ever really saw him in a live action form. Batman Begins, I mean, out of the trilogy, for me it's kind of it's a good start, but I don't really rewatch it as much as the other ones. But now that I have rewatched it recently, it does have some cool, interesting things that at first I didn't really appreciate, and now I actually do have fun watching the film. So pretty cool. We'll go ahead and add this to the collection. Now he does come with some accessories. Mainly he comes with two alternate hands, which besides the ones that he comes with, these are two trigger finger hands, a left and a right. Pretty cool. Now he doesn't come with any sort of like gas gun. I do actually own, there's like a kind of standard like little kid version of Scarecrow, and it's the one where like his head spins around and it goes from like fear toxin mode to like regular Scarecrow mode. And that one did come with like an apparatus that you put on his arm that like shoots out the fear toxin. But the actual Mattel Movie Masters one also didn't come with anything. But me, I am always interested in adding my own little touches to these figures, so we'll go ahead and take a look at that in a little bit. Now he also does come with the two arms of Bane. Pretty cool. Now, I don't want to talk too much about this because I want to talk about it when I actually review the Bane figure, and then I'll give my thoughts on that and the differences between the Mattel releases and a couple of other, details that I've seen by watching other reviews. But trust me when I tell you, it will be probably the best and most entertaining review that I do from this whole wave. But let's go ahead and take a closer look at them. Now, first impressions, I just have to say right off the bat, just by looking at this, look at the detail. Like the sculpt work and the added detail is just there. Like, from the mask, which is basically like a burlap sack mask, some kind of texture like that, down into like the kind of modified straight jacket that he uses. It just has like all kinds of cool sculpted detail and textures and lines, and I mean, if you really look at it, it's just really awesome. Now, I have heard people talking about the Mattel one and putting it in comparison with this one, which I'm actually going to do here, once I get done with this one. But trust me, there is no comparison. I mean, even though the Mattel one puts up a little bit of a fight, this McFarlane figure just takes it to a whole nother level. And I kind of try and figure out where these people get their ideas from, or I don't know if, or how they like formulate their opinions on figures. But let's go ahead and take a look at this guy. Now, once you get past the first impressions, awesome sculpt, nice design. Let's go ahead and take a look at the head sculpt. Now, of course, we know this is Dr. Crane's mask that he wears to like scare his victims or his prey. He also uses the neuro fear toxin to like disorient them, or basically put fear into them. There's a cool scene in Batman Begins where Batman first encounters the Scarecrow, and he actually takes a blast of the fear toxin. And this is actually where this head sculpt is predominantly from, and that is because the maggots. Now, in the scene, once Batman takes in the fear toxin, he's like sees maggots first appear on the mask, and then bats start coming out of the mouth. And this is actually like pretty much a cool representation of the maggots. And McFarlane was gonna go with the dark version and like the the creepy crawly version of the Scarecrow. And I also, looking at the head sculpt, I also hear a lot of complaints like, oh, the burlap sack is too dark. If you want to, mix up a little bit of paint, give it a little wash, and you'll make it a lighter, tan burlap color. It's not a big deal. So have a lot of cool detail in the stitching. Each little maggot has white paint on it with little crosshatch lines. I mean, it's just an awesome head sculpt. You can also, if you look in there, you could see his eyes inside there. At first I thought you could only see one, but actually if you put some light in there, you can see that he has both his eyes showing, but they're just like recessed into the mask. Pretty cool, awesome detail from McFarlane. I mean, and then the maggots are like going, even towards the back of the mask. It's just an awesome head sculpt for the Scarecrow. And of course, he has his traditional noose around his neck, which actually is a detail that I appreciate. And the fact that it is a different color than the main part of the mask just gives it that cool separation. I'm really digging this head sculpt. Let's take a look at the articulation. Now, he can look down, not too far, but he does, look down a little. You can push it and get a little bit more range. But one thing I did notice is that he can look up really well. All you have to do is, put a little bit of pressure, move it around. And of course, as always, a big tip that I give you guys and everybody is warm these things up. You don't necessarily have to dip it in boiling water. Just hit it with a blow dryer. I personally use a heat gun, but I'm like real careful with it. And I move it around and keep a distance so as to not melt the plastic. But people like kind of look down on this, but if you think about it, actually NECA used to always tell you to heat the figures up before you move them around. And actually even Multiverse, which is a cool up and coming company right now, actually gives you a little form that gives you instructions of how to heat up the figures before you actually move them around. Now, if you're a little kid or something, you could care less, you'll just start manhandling these figures, But as us, as adult collectors, or serious collectors, we know how to take care of our figures and how to not push them past their limits. Plus, if you've been collecting as long as I have, you know a lot of tricks of the trade of how to get more range and how to, get the most out of your figures. Now, you can also get right to left pretty smoothly, and then of course you can tilt his head for some character, give him that creepy vibe. Now, this just shows he has a lot of cool range, free range in the head, which is awesome. Now, like I said before, let's take a closer look at this upper kind of straight jacket overcoat. Cool detail, buckles. Now, of course, this has a cool wash, but there are details that are not actually detailed in, which is, a kind of a standard thing for McFarlane. This is a $20 figure and is made for the mass market. But then when you go down, you do right away see that underneath here, he's supposed to have like a suited body. Let's take a look at the waist articulation. You do get side to side motion. You do get the full tilt-a-whirl at the waist. You do have a lower waist swivel. And surprisingly, if you hold on to like the suit jacket part, you actually do have upper chest rotation. You just gotta like hold on to the bottom part so it doesn't move, but you do have rotation there. And of course you can twist them, get them in some cool poses. Now we're gonna get into some things I heard on reviews, and that's like that he's squishy or hollow here around the waist. And a lot of people were thinking like this is a detraction of the figure, like there's missing plastic or whatever. But the way I kind of look at it now that I've messed around with it is that this actually adds to the articulation. And if you don't necessarily see that undercoat or like the undersuit part, then what's the difference if it's there or not? And I mean, I know everybody's going to have their own opinion, but if you notice, since the midsection is kind of hollow, this actually gives him the ability to really crunch. Now, you do have to be careful with this. Do not push it past its limit. But if you look at that, he kind of gets almost a L shape of a crunch. Now, when are you going to see that in a suited body? I mean, look at that range that you get there. So while other people see it as missing plastic, I kind of see it as added articulation, where you could actually get them in some cool poses and crunched up poses that you necessarily don't think a suited figure would actually perform. And that's why I don't understand why some people complain about certain things, but then they don't show, like I'm going to show you here, that you can actually get them in some cool poses by using this hollow midsection. Now, of course, you can lean them back as well, but the same thing, you want to be careful not to push them too far back. But I mean, he does go pretty far back on his own, and that allows you to get him into some spooky Scarecrow poses. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the shoulders. Now this is another cool thing. Since it is hollow in here in the shoulder of the straitjacket, you get a lot of range there at the shoulder. Now it doesn't have the traditional bushing that McFarlane usually uses, but the coat actually works or performs the same function as that ring would because it moves with the shoulder. So you get a lot of cool range. You do also get up and down, front to back. Cool range. Now there is no bicep cut, but what you do have is a single jointed elbow, but it contains that elbow swivel, which adds more range to the figure. So you can actually put his arm pretty far back, close to his head, by using that elbow swivel. Now going down from the shoulder, you got cool detail on the sleeves of that straitjacket. And then look at the wash. You have kind of like a light tan wash, and then it starts getting darker as you go down into the cuffs around the hand, which makes it seem like it's been worn or like full of grime and stuff like that, which is a cool little detail. So McFarlane actually like cut down the plastic in the midsection, but he added a lot more wash, not necessarily paint detail, but wash. And the sculpt is a completely new sculpt. Even the pants legs are completely new. Even the shoes are completely new. Even the hands are completely new. So that is something you have to take into consideration. And then of course he has like some dangling straps. And then I saw another, reviewer saying that, well, what good does this do if you can't even move the hands? But I mean, these are rubber, these sleeves. So if you pull back the sleeve, it actually exposes the hand, and then you could get your full hinge at the wrist, and then swivel, and then hinge again to get those 4 ways of articulation. And it does nothing to the sleeve. Once you get the hand in the position that you want, you just let it go, and the sleeve goes back to its original form. So I mean, I don't understand, like they don't want to put the work in, or they want to like downplay the articulation of the figure, but you can pull the sleeve back and manipulate your wrist. Now this hand is kind of just like an open kind of, gesturing hand, but if you go to the right side, you got that same cool sleeve and the same wash, another strap, but this side has a fist in the hand. And you can also alternate, pop out the fist, go ahead and get one of the trigger finger hands and actually pop that in here pretty simply. And I did this by just pulling back the sleeve and accessing the hand, and had no problem at all to switch out the alternate hands. Now you could get them in a T-pose pretty simply. You get a little bit more out of that, but not too much. But you can move his arms above his head. And of course, with the added elbow articulation, you could bend it and get his arms behind his head, which is something you don't usually see. And even move him to the front and cross his hands in front of his body, which is another thing, that you rarely see from figures. Pretty dope. Let's go ahead and move down and take a look at that suit bottom. Let's take a look first at the thigh swivel. It's there. I'm pretty sure if you heat this up, you'll get a lot more swivel. But what I have noticed on the McFarlanes is if you kick the leg up a little bit, you could really see how much swivel is in that hip. And that allows you to move the shoe from left to right without having a thigh cut or any kind of cut in the leg. Now you can kick up respectively. And this is what I was talking about the articulation, that I saw a reviewer that was like, well, the legs can't do anything. And I mean, look at this. Look, he could kind of get like in like a kung fu jump kick kind of pose. I mean, he could kick way up straight. He could kick back pretty nicely. And of course, once you put the legs back, everything goes back to its original shape, so you don't have to worry about that. But I was rather interested to see if you cock out the leg, bend the knee, if he has that cool McFarlane hip swivel. And of course he does. Then you could show off the double jointed knees. Not the best knees, but it's not too bad for a suit cut. Straighten it out. Now here's another one. The foot has no articulation. That's what I heard, all the reviews I saw. But when I finally got this figure in hand, actually he clicks up once, and then he clicks down to where he almost has his toes pointed out, which is a lot more than no articulation. So you do get a nice range of up and down. You got right to left. Look at that. You got some nice rocker without any effort at all. And then you got toe articulation. And if you look in there, it's like a weird kind of modified ball joint. But in all actuality, who really cares? Because the cuffs of the pants actually drape over that. and you really only see the shoe for the most part. So I just don't understand some people. I mean, look at the splits on this guy. Like I said before, bending knees in the air. I mean, you could get him in crouch down poses. I just don't get it. But before we go, let's take a look at the suit lower body. And this is where McFarlane like really shines, because he could have just put like the three Jokers lower body or some kind of, random suit body. But look at this. The suit actually has like a texture, of a suit. You could see a button there, and then you move down into the legs, and also continues that cool kind of like pinstripe, texture that the slacks have. They're actually pretty nice suit pant legs, and these could be used to make another suit body, as like a start off. So I mean, these are really nicely textured legs. Now it'd be interesting to see the Two-Face, to see if there are any differences to this one. But for this one, what it is, it's really nicely executed. Take a look at them from the bottom. No tread and no identifying marks. Moving up the back. Now I'm not going to force it too much, but even the back has that cool, striping in the texture and into the back of the slacks. Move down the coat or the straitjacket. Look at the wash on this. Look at all the straps and everything. I mean, if you want to come in with some silver and touch up all the little details, I mean, that's a real easy job. If that's what you want to do, I may end up doing that myself. Just to put him up on the shelf and have this guy look good, you can actually get more out of him than that and put him in some cool poses. Sculpt work all the way up until it creeps under the mask, the hood. Oh man, just cool lines here. Creepy vibes looking at him from the backside. I mean, awesome Scarecrow figure. And if you don't believe me about the Mattel comparison, I actually do have the Mattel here. Now, first off, look at the scale. This is pretty much, to me, these are like baby toys, and these are like big boy toys. This one just way surpasses this one in texture and detail and articulation. And if you don't believe me, let's take a look at the Mattel version. Now, the head sculpt actually looks pretty good. This is just a generic standard version. It doesn't have any maggots or any details or anything like that. It's basically one color with a little bit of wash. Actually, the noose around the neck is the same color as the hood, and this one has the two separate tones, which is one thing that I liked about this one that this one does not have. Starting off with articulation, I mean, look at that. You get him in the T-pose, move down. He has single jointed elbows, but they don't even do 90 degrees. And of course, there is no elbow rotation. So you can't get his hands in front of his body, and you can't get his hands behind his neck the way the McFarlane figure can. Now, just to look at the hands as well, somebody was saying that you can't manipulate these hands. Well, you can't manipulate these hands because the plastic from the sleeves is so stiff that you can't even fold it back, and you can't really even get your fingers in there to like move the hands around. And of course, you saw with the McFarlane, I was able to manipulate the wrist fairly easily by just pulling back the sleeve. And this one, forget about it. You're not going to get to the hands. There's pretty much no way to even like put anything in his hands. Moving down into the trench coat, I mean, it's cool. It has wrinkles and a little bit of wash, but there's no buckles. There's not really hardly any straps. There's no texture like grain like the way the McFarlane has. And then once you open up the straitjacket and look at the suited body under here, I mean, this is just flat, generic, suited body. There's no sculpt work. There's no texture, nothing. You got single jointed knees. You got a hideous thigh cut that as soon as you turn it, it makes the legs look really unnatural. You can almost do the complete splits, but here's the problem. You can't get him into a kung fu pose because he only has single jointed knees. He doesn't have the double jointed knees that the McFarlane has, so that's as much as you're going to get out of it. And don't get me started on the feet, because there is absolutely no up and down. It's just like one click and there's nothing. There is not even any right to left, and there's no rocker for sure, and there is no toe articulation to speak of. So this figure was cool for what it was. I loved this when it came out. I remember buying a majority of the Movie Masters from Mattel, but I'm sorry, it's time to move on. Go ahead and leave these figures behind. I mean, they're cool to have in your collection, but this is the future. This is now. This is what I'm really enjoying collecting right now. Now, as an added feature, you can do a lot of stuff with this figure. I've seen a lot of people do it, but I had to do it myself. You can put him on the horse from The Dark Knight Returns. His feet actually fit into the stirrups, and he could grip the reins, and he looks actually awesome on that horse. In fact, since I have two horses, I was originally gonna give one to one of my Phantom figures, but now I've decided to make that Phantom like a skull throne, and I might end up picking up another one of these and putting him on the horse. Maybe add like some fire details in the mouth just to, liven it up. But of course, it's all up to your imagination. Now, one detail I did want to add is, since he didn't come with anything at all per se for his hands, I did go ahead and quickly make like this modified little, I guess kind of like a fear toxin canister. But I did add my own little details. It is a pretty high chrome silver with some added like bronze gold. And then I added a little detail where the tip pops out, kind of like, I'm not sure what I was thinking, but kind of like projectiling a little bit, and then you could just push it back in. But this does fit into his hand. And then you can put him in some cool poses, spraying some fear toxin or whatever. I just thought it was a cool little added detail. And it just shows you the fun factor that these figures have. Now, he's real easy to stand. Look at that, no problem. Pretty cool figure. He's gonna look awesome up on my live action shelf. Gonna have to make room for him, but he will be up there with the rest of the wave. I'm actually looking really forward to getting through this whole wave and building the Bane. But you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.